If you've been struggling to lose weight after 40, I have been exactly where you are. I know how it feels when nothing fits the way it used to, or when you look in the mirror and think, how did I even get here? Maybe you've already tried keto, intermittent fasting, or even those brutal HIIT workouts that left you exhausted. And sure, you might lose a few pounds fast, but then life happens. But here's what I wish someone told me years ago. Any plans that promise quick 25-pound weight losses in a month, they're actually sabotaging your long-term success. Because when you lose weight that quickly, you're not just losing fat, you're losing the muscle that keeps your metabolism strong. And that's exactly why 95% of people who lose weight quickly gain everything back plus more. Here's the thing. There's a massive gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. What if I told you that the solution isn't losing weight faster, that it's losing it in a way that actually sticks? Because even though everyone else keeps telling you to do more, eat less, push harder, I couldn't keep my weight off until I did the opposite. The truth is, losing 1 pound a week might sound painfully slow, but I promise that's the only approach that works with your changing body after 40, not against it. So in today's video, I'll show you the gentle fat loss method that helped me lose 50 pounds and actually keep it off for over 3 years with the exact system that finally broke my yo-yo diet cycle. And let's start with the one thing that no one wants to believe works until they actually try it. If you're like most dieters, you believe walking isn't real exercise. Trust me, I always thought the same thing because I thought that I had to suffer to get results. Like I was always the queen of extreme diets. If it promised to make me skinny by Tuesday, I was in. Keto, intermittent fasting, those spin classes that left me exhausted, but I never cared because I just burned all of the calories. But I busted my butt through every quick fix only to end up right back where I started, except I was usually heavier and way more frustrated. But here's what finally changed everything. I stopped fighting my body and instead started working with it. And the results? Well, the results speak for themselves. Before we get into the simple 4-step system that actually works, first we have to address what will never work. Because if you keep forcing these popular diets that are keeping you stuck, then you will stay stuck. Here's what most fitness experts don't want you to know, or maybe they don't even understand it themselves. But if I understood these two things 30 years ago, I never would have struggled with my weight. The first myth is you only burn calories during exercise, which leads you to work as hard as you can in the name of fat loss. But this is actually really wrong and it's keeping you stuck. Right now, while you're folding laundry or pretending to listen to another one of your husband's work stories, you're actually burning more calories than you would in 30 minutes of an intense spin class. And it's not just a few calories either, because just existing burns 60 to 70% of your calories every day. This is called your resting metabolic rate, which are the calories you burn just being alive. So even though you're exhausting yourself with more and more cardio, the truth is most of your calorie burn happens when you're doing absolutely nothing. But here's where it gets interesting for us women over 40. Too much high-intensity exercise actually increases cortisol, which is a problem when you're dealing with hormonal changes. That's because spiking cortisol is like sending your body a message that says, hold on to every ounce of fat, especially around your middle. Which leads into the second myth far too many of us still believe, that you need brutal workouts in order to lose weight, when in reality, the opposite is true. And I'll show you why in a minute. I know exactly how women get stuck in this belief since I used to spend hours doing cardio, always thinking that more was better. I'd leave the gym looking like I'd just been hit by a truck, but then immediately drive through Starbucks because I needed a recovery frappuccino. But walking keeps your stress hormones balanced while still helping you create the calorie deficit that you need. It's like the difference between gently coaxing your body into releasing fat versus screaming at it to comply. And when you combine walking with this next strategy, that is when the real magic happens. Remember how I said this method is different? Well, here's where we get to the good stuff. Because I'm going to show you how to create a sustainable calorie deficit where you can actually eat more while losing fat without completely destroying your metabolism. The first step is finding your sweet spot for steps, which will be different for everyone since if you want walking to help with fat loss, you have to do more than you're currently doing. But the honest truth is, most people take less than 3,000 steps a day, which is exactly where I was when I had 50 pounds to lose. And yes, that even includes daily sessions on the elliptical. If you're someone who's never tracked steps and you have zero clue about how many steps you actually take, invest in a pedometer or smartwatch that tracks steps for you. Or even if you have a smartphone, as long as you carry it with you, it keeps tabs on your daily steps. If you fall into the sedentary category where you take less than 3,000 steps most days, then you should begin working up to a minimum of 6,000 steps. Although most will do better getting closer to 7 or 8,000 steps. Now, if this sounds impossible, getting 6,000 to 8,000 steps is way easier than you think. But it does take intentional effort, like taking a few 10 to 15-minute walks each day. Because when you walk at a brisk pace, you'll average 1,000 steps per 10 minutes. So if you commit to a 15-minute walk after each meal, you'll easily rack up 4,500 steps. When you add that onto the movement that you already get just living your life, you'll easily fall between that 6,000 to 8,000 step goal. While you could also aim for one longer walk, walking after meals is a great strategy because this also helps lower insulin, which makes it easier to lose fat. But either way, start with 45 minutes of intentional movement every day. This one choice sends you on your way to losing 1 pound each week with a plan that is way easier than anything else you've tried. To make it more likely that you'll actually complete your walks, pair them with your favorite activities. You can do things like listening to podcasts, talking to friends, or even walk around the park while your kids are at practice. But here's the piece most walking for fat loss advice completely misses. And it's the reason some people walk for years without losing any weight. And just to warn you, my take on this goes against what most women are taught. But my take lost me 50 pounds, which I've easily kept off for 3 years. So I'm not saying that I'm right, but also, how could you tell me that I'm wrong? But trust me, if this video gets enough views, someone in the comments will be screaming that I'm wrong. While other experts teach you to create massive 1,000+ calorie deficits, what actually works long term is the opposite. And maybe you're all smug thinking, well, my expert told me that I don't even have to count calories, so you're definitely not right. See, you're the one. Listen, whether you follow the cult of keto, carnivore, intermittent fasting, vegan, need I go on? If you're still deeply entrenched in any of these diets, you're only dropping weight quickly because you've cut out all carbs, everything but meat, you only eat every other day, or you've decided to remove all joy and sanity from your life. Sorry, vegans, we will just never see eye to eye on this one. But if you're following any of these diets and you're losing more than 1 to 2 pounds each week, then you are likely eating in 1,000+ calorie deficit. Because the math just doesn't math any other way. You want to know where else the math doesn't math? All of that muscle you're losing while following these extreme diets. Because that math, it is bringing your metabolism to a grinding halt. And when you do that, that's when you regain every pound that you struggle to lose. So for women over 40, a more realistic approach is to aim for a daily deficit of 300 to 500 calories a day. But when you create a 300 to 500 calorie deficit, you should feel slightly more hungry than usual, not like you're auditioning for Survivor. Because as you're speeding head on into perimenopause, your hormones are already causing enough drama. You don't need to add constant hangry outbursts on top of this phase of life. But when you add a moderate deficit to your daily walks, this makes it possible to lose around 1 pound each week, which again, I know it sounds terribly slow, but that's actually by design. Sticking with this strategy helps you lose fat slowly enough so that your body doesn't panic, but fast enough that your results add up into real progress over time. Because when's the last time you lost 50 pounds in a year that you actually kept off? But there is a little more to this strategy than walking more in a moderate calorie deficit. Because if it was that easy to just cut a few hundred calories and lose a full pound each week, poof, we would all be at our goals by now. Well, at least those of us who are reasonable. Because there is still a crap ton of women who actually believe that they can lose 25 pounds in a month and that they'll actually keep it off, which is completely delulu. Isn't that what all of the kids are saying these days? Or is that term out already? This brings us to the part where you learn how to stay in a moderate calorie deficit that actually supports your fat loss goals. Let's start with the one tool that ensures you eat up to 50% less calories than you think that you're eating, which is tracking food. And I know, tracking food sounds about as fun as organizing your junk drawer. But here's the reason that this is a must. Most of us have no idea what a normal portion size actually looks like. Because whatever you're being served at restaurants, most of these meals add up to the amount of calories that you should be eating a day in one meal alone. And then some people grab 2 or 3 meals out every single day, wondering why they never get anywhere, even though all they eat is salads. Even if you use an app like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer for just 2 weeks, I promise that you will be absolutely shocked at how many calories you're actually eating, especially if you've never tracked before. Because the day I realized that a Caesar salad has more calories than a Big Mac, that was the day that my entire reality changed. But the key to being really shocked is to be completely honest with yourself by tracking every bite. And while you're getting into the habit of tracking, make sure you also pay attention to protein. Because if you're not eating a minimum of 100 grams of protein every day while losing weight, then I promise you that you are losing the wrong kind of weight. And this is what happens when you lose the wrong kind of weight. Not only does eating enough protein help you preserve the muscle that keeps your metabolism strong, but it also keeps you fuller longer on less calories. Plus, 20 to 30% of the calories you get from protein are automatically burned just through digestion. It's like having this huge metabolic advantage just because you chose more protein instead of continuing to overeat carbs or fat. And don't get it twisted. That's not me saying that carbs are bad. Because if you're in menopause, or even if you're just making that transition into perimenopause, if your body needs more carbs in order for you to feel sane, then you listen to your body and you give it more carbs. Especially if you're doing this the right way by including at least 2 strength training sessions each week. Because that metabolism boosting muscle that we talked about, it just doesn't grow by itself. You have to do something to actively build and maintain your metabolic machinery, and that something is lifting heavy weights. But what happens when you're doing everything right, but your scale still won't budge? Let's talk about how to accurately track and measure results, and what to do if everything you're tracking is adding up to 0 pounds lost. Let's start with a comment that I see all of the time. I've been walking for years, but I'm still not losing weight. Now, if this is you, your problem isn't walking, especially since walking only gives you around 10 or 20% of your results, and that is me being really generous. While it is something you need to do because it comes with so many other health benefits, let's be clear, walking is not the magic bullet for fat loss. If you're not getting results, this happens for one of 3 reasons. Number 1, you're eating more than you think. Yes, even if you track everything. Because all of the cooking oil that you didn't think about, all of the meals out and processed diet foods you eat that are allowed to underestimate calories by up to 20%, and all of those small nibbles that you promised to track, but then your kids start screaming because the dog just ate her chicken nuggets, so you forget, it all adds up. Sometimes really quickly. The second reason is you're still not eating enough protein. The truth is, we live in a world that is not geared towards getting enough protein with our meals. Because even the foods that are claimed as high protein foods, a lot of those contain way more calories from fat, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does leave you reaching your calorie limit long before hitting your protein goal. Then combine that with the fact that you're still just mulling over adding strength training to your routine, well, now you're losing muscle every day that you don't get your act together. The third reason is even though your diet and exercise is on track, now that's interfering with your sleep and daily stress. Listen, none of this works if you're lacking sleep or if you're too stressed out to actually stick with anything longer than a few days. So if you still haven't dialed in your sleep and stress, this needs to become your number 1 priority well before you attempt to lose even 1 more pound of fat. The fourth reason is you're not putting everything together and analyzing if it's actually working. Which, stepping on the scale 1 time each week isn't the way to track your results. In fact, I wouldn't wish that kind of drama on my worst enemy. Not that I really have enemies. I don't think I do. Well, either way, I never lost weight consistently until I put everything together in my goal tracker spreadsheet so that I could analyze if what I was doing was actually working. Comparing my weekly averages of calories in, calories out, protein, steps, and how that all affected my weekly weight trend is the thing that finally got me out of yo-yo diets for good. And while yes, there are millions of people who lose weight every year without some fancy spreadsheet, how many of those millions actually keep it off? Not many. In fact, it's less than 3 to 5% of people who lose a large amount of weight. And are you putting in all of this effort just to regain every pound? Yeah, I didn't think so. So if you do want help putting together the same tracking system that literally takes less than 5 minutes a day, but it's really the best way to finally reach your goal, I'll add my personalized plan link to the pinned comment. I would love to take all of the knowledge that I've gained over the past 30 years about what works and what absolutely doesn't to create a plan for you that finally gets you to your goal. And if you're thinking, this plan sounds way too good to be true, well, I used to think that too. But then I tried it and here's what happened. If you want this to happen for you too, then watch this video next. You'll learn more about the system that helped me lose 50 pounds, which is the only system that has ever led to permanent results.